Would have been out with engineering.
Yeah.
I think we're going to go ahead and get started with our work session. We have a very full meeting, and I'm going to turn it over to our city manager to introduce the first item.
Okay, good morning. We have 3 items on the agenda for this morning. I'm going to ask Waterworks to come up first. And we have asked Amy to come back in and let us know more about the potential water conservation and what her recommendations are for us to follow through with some of that.
Thank you, Scott. I'm Amy Kaler, CEO and General Manager of Des Moines Waterworks, and thank you for having me back again this morning. And I really want to start off by thanking the mayor and each of you council members. I've spoken with each of you at one time or another, and you've been very interested in and supportive of water, and we really appreciate that. So I want to start out with that. I want to provide an update operationally and about our water quality that we're seeing in our source waters. And again, how that affects us and what Des Moines Waterworks is doing to make sure that the water continues to meet safe drinking water standards despite some pretty challenging source water conditions. And then Tammy Madsen from Central Iowa Waterworks will be reviewing the water use plan. It has gone through some changes, and we can explain what those changes are as we head into the peak season. And then also talk about some water quality investments that we'll be making. To start with, I would like to talk about our Fluor Drive treatment plant, and my remarks today are going to be restricted to the Fluor Drive plant and McMullen. And, we hear a lot about nitrates. Nitrates are climbing and have been elevated since January. Typically, nitrates are something that we struggle with from late April until late July, but this was a really unusual year. And we've been battling high nitrates, as I mentioned, since early January. And in fact, we have been running the nitrate removal facility 90% of the year. And that creates challenges. For one, it's costly. It costs $16,000 a day to run that nitrate removal facility. And it is just operationally a challenge. It requires a lot of overtime and a lot of work. And so this is a graph here of what the nitrate concentrations have been in the month of May. We have 3 primary water sources at our Fluor Drive plant: the Des Moines River, the Raccoon River, and our infiltration gallery, which is an underground reservoir, if you will, and it relies on the riverbank to act as a natural filtration, and it does a lot of the hard work for us before it gets to the treatment plant. And typically, that is our best source of water, the gallery is, and we lean on it, and even it is above the safe drinking water standard of 10 milligrams per liter, which makes it difficult. So we don't have any of those water sources to lean on. Which is why, as I mentioned, we've been running the nitrate removal facility. We have gotten up to 6 vessels. Today, though, we are only running 3 because there is a bit of hope, seeing the Des Moines River decrease just a little bit over time. And with the rain this past weekend, it has diluted, and so we have seen the nitrate concentrations decrease, and so we've been able to reduce our vessels. We do expect those to climb back up, though, the nitrate concentrations in our source water, as the watershed starts to shed the water into our water sources. So just as an example of what dilution can do, this morning we have a monitor at Jefferson that we watch, and the nitrates went from 13 milligrams per liter at that Jefferson monitor to 5 just because of the rain. So it can be volatile, but it's important to know that it's probably short-lived. At the McMullen Water Treatment Plant, we don't have nitrate removal. We rely on blending. And so when nitrates are high in the Raccoon River, we use Maffett Reservoir primarily. And because we have used it since January, it is stressed. I call it our savings account, and we are using a lot of our savings going into our peak season. We have used 6 of the 16 feet that are available to us, which is about 42%. So from its normal levels, we have used nearly half, and we're using withdrawing about 2.5 million gallons a day from Maffett Reservoir. And we also use Crystal Lake, which is a smaller body of water right there by the treatment plant. It is also low, and it is usually a low nitrate source, but currently, because we're having to fill it from the river, which is high, it is about 9 milligrams per liter in nitrate as well. And again, these are source waters. This is not our finished drinking water. I want to make that clear. Our finished drinking water has and will continue to meet safe drinking water standards because of these tools and levers that we use in treatment. One of our really important tools that we use, we call aquifer storage and recovery wells, or ASRs is what you might hear us call them. The region has 3 ASRs, and then Central Iowa Water Works members, some of the members also have their own ASR wells, and these are tools to help us manage peak demand, and it takes a little bit of the burden off of the treatment plants in peak season when things get hot. We have an ASR at our LP Moon storage facility, and it is 100% full. We did recover from it for a short period of time. And let me back up. What ASR wells are wells in the ground in the aquifer, and we actually inject or put in treated water that has been fully treated during times of low demand, so usually the winter, and then we pull or recover that water when we need it, when demand is high. And so we started recovering from that well last week, but we have turned that off so that we can keep it for when things get warmer and drier. We have another ASR at Army Post Road. It is full as well. And then we have another ASR at McMullen. And we had to stop injecting water, treated water into it for some maintenance. And so that maintenance will continue this week, and hopefully we can continue to fill that. This is a graph of customer demand in May in both last year and this year. You can see May, and this is something that we typically see, the demand does climb throughout the month. It's getting warmer. And I guess the good news here, though, is that we are under last year's demand levels. So despite the high nitrate levels, we are able to manage through those when demands are low because we can treat enough water and run our nitrate removal facility. But when demands get high, we don't have enough of that capacity in the nitrate removal facility to meet the high demands. And so we rely on blending and managing customer demand. And so it is good news, I think, that customer demand is lower in May than it was last year. Before I turn it over to Tammy, and she'll talk a little bit about the water use plan and some changes that it has undergone, I would open it up if there are any questions.
So just real quick, I know Polk County Conservation, John Swanson, and we partnered with them on a cover crop machine. Is that helping upstream in our watershed?
Every action helps upstream. Every practice helps. And that has been a very popular program. We really appreciate the partnership with City of Des Moines and Polk County and IDALS and Des Moines Water Works. That cover crop seeder is still used. It is still, applying cover crops in many acres, we need to scale up throughout the state. We need more of those practices. And so at the same time that we are focused on treatment options, and Tammy can talk a little bit about that, what Central Iowa Water Works is focused on, we also need to focus on the source. And it's really come at it from both sides. Because, we believe that the best solution is when we clean the water at the source so that it's safe for recreation, it's safe for all the uses that we have for it.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilman Mandelbaum.
Yeah. One of the things I heard you talk about is that when we run the treatment options, we're meeting the Safe Drinking Water Act standard, 10 milligrams per liter, right?
That's right.
Do you have a sense, because the nitrate removal facility has been running since January. It ran over 100 days last year, right? When all those treatment options are running, what is the finished nitrate level in the finished drinking water?
We have been maintaining about a 9 milligram per liter finished drinking water nitrate. If you look at long-term averages, over the last 3 years, our average nitrate in the finished drinking water has been less than 5 milligrams per liter. In the last 10 years, it has been under 5. So when you look long-term as well, we are at that lower threshold that is sometimes talked about as well.
Right, but the last 2 years have been closer to that 10, right?
In the finished drinking water when nitrates are high, correct. But there are times when nitrates are quite low. And so they're pretty volatile, which frankly is part of the challenge in treating them.
Yeah, and one of the recommendations of the Central Iowa Source Water Research Assessment Report was to prepare for meeting a higher drinking water standard. I guess I have 2 questions there. What do you think, based on research? So, for example, there's a lot that's come out about cancer. If it was a higher standard, what do you think that standard might be? And 2, what's the plan if there is a higher standard for how we would meet that if we are just barely meeting the standard today and we expect growth, and what would the plan be?
And by higher, you mean more rigorous, actually
more rigorous.
lower.
Right. Lower. A more rigorous standard, yes.
Right,
By
right.
higher, I mean more rigorous. What I see is, being even, not even being particularly conservative, the Cancer Research Report has links at 3 micrograms per liter or even less. So if the standard was set at 3 or 5, what?
Did you? Okay. Tammy just whispered to me that we have the growth plan in the packet that is before you, which will address some of the improvements. But Councilman Mandelbaum, to answer your question, what I can say is that water utilities really are carefully monitoring this conversation, this discussion about the safe drinking water standard. I reached out to the EPA within the last 2 weeks to see if they were monitoring this conversation in Iowa and if they had a plan to re-review the standard. And the official response that I got was it was just reviewed in 2024 and all of the available data was reviewed and they had chosen not to change the standard at that time. They are reviewed every 6 years. And so Des Moines Water Works is a contract operator for Central Iowa Water Works. Our job is to ensure that we are meeting safe drinking water standards, and we're doing that. And we are closely monitoring this conversation. And when that standard changes, it will require potentially a lot of investment in order to meet a more rigorous standard. Today, it's a challenge to meet 10 milligrams per liter. So it will be costly, but that will be our job as a water utility to ensure that we meet that standard.
Will the state funding the $25 million that you got? Will that help us lower the standard, or will that just keep us at status quo where we're at right now?
I will let Tammy address that because that was funding that was given to Central Iowa Waterworks. But I will preface her comments by saying that really is to expand the nitrate removal facility to meet the 10 milligrams per liter without going into our water use plan like we did last year. So that was the intent of that funding.
Thank you.
Yes, and this might be a good time to turn it over to Tammy and let her share some of her comments on the water use plan and nitrate removal.
Good morning. I'm Tammy Madsen, Central Iowa Waterworks. Thanks for having me this morning. I've been here for just over a year now, and I haven't had the opportunity to meet you all in this setting, so thanks for having me. I did pass out a packet for you. We've been doing some updating to our website. It just went live about a week ago. That front page there shows you where, as soon as you get onto our website, there's a slider, and in the center, there is a current status of where we are in the water use plan. Once you click on that button right in the middle, it opens up to that second graphic that you have, and it shows all of those links. All of the things behind the first page in your packet are the things that are in those links. One of the items is this graphic here on the screen. It shows all of the stages that came out of the after action review that we had from last summer. So if you'll recall, last summer we had a water use plan activation. At that time, it was called the water shortage plan. But after having this after action review and talking to hundreds of participants, including our member agencies and then other stakeholders who had some feedback that they'd like to share, we more appropriately named it the water use plan. It's not just for times of shortage, it's for times of poor water quality, other things that might come up. We added a couple stages, stage 0 and actually, we only added one, stage 0. We want to focus on water conservation throughout the year. We know that we use a lot of water for lawn watering, regardless of whether we have poor water quality or drought. It costs about $20 million for every 1 million gallons per treatment capacity that we build. To put that in perspective, last summer, when we put on the full lawn watering ban, we reduced our water use by 30 to 40%. So almost 20 million gallons per day go on lawns. $20 million per 1 million gallons per day to build it, 20 million gallons per day go on our lawns. As we spent our off season, if you will, thinking about this water use plan, we talked to the Turfgrass Association, Iowa State University, different folks who know grass, and we are simply watering our lawns too much. 1 to 2 days a week is sufficient for the grass we have, so we know if we're watering 3 days or more, that's simply too much. It's damaging our grass and it's using a lot of water that we could be putting to other use. So today, I'll move quickly, you have lots of folks here. We're gonna talk about stages 1, 2, and 3. All of the black stuff here is stuff that already was in the water use plan, so I will skip through to the things that are colored. So nothing really changed in stage 1. That's the 25% voluntary reduction. When we start to see stress in our water system, we can call for 25%. Folks, please stop watering 25%. So if you're watering 10 minutes, it's kind of silly, water 7.5. It's hard to quantify for the public what 25% means. When you get to 50%, that should be a real indicator to the public that we need help. If you're watering 3 days, water 2 days. If you're watering 20 minutes, water 10 minutes. Water only the front yard or the backyard. What CIWW will do differently, we'll notify the DNR more quickly, we'll notify all of you more quickly, media outlets, lawn and turf professionals, emergency management. That's not because it's an emergency per se, but they would help us get the message out more quickly, and then provide clearly written, easy to understand educational materials. That's what's in your hand right now. You can click that link and you know what you need to do. What's really helpful about what's in your hand right now, I get messages, as you can imagine, all the time. Facebook, cell phone, email. What's different this year? Are you going to shut my business down? Is something going to happen to me that's bad or scary? Why does this matter? Why is this happening to me? If you send someone to that link right now, they have everything they need to understand what's going on. In that packet, there's a color-coded graphic that shows, in this stage, this is what we're going to do, and this is what we expect. Same thing for stage 3. If we go into a full lawn watering ban, you can still put down sod. You can still seed things. What we learned last summer was that when we stopped doing sod, communities shut down. They don't get to work anymore. Mortgages slow down. All of those kinds of things happen. And if we're very intentional about how we do sod and seed, we can keep those community members working. We can keep mortgages closing. All of our economic development things that are important and matter, we can still do as long as we're intentional about it. Splash pads, we learned last summer that is a community hub. It's not just a playground. It's where people go to get their summer lunches. It's where families without air conditioning go to cool down. It's something that we need to be very intentional about, keeping those open during the summer. All of that is available at that link as well. So that is why 50% is so important. If we can all be very careful in 50% and intentional about how we voluntarily do things, then perhaps we never need to get to that full lawn watering ban. But there are times where it's just going to happen, no matter how intentional we are at 50%. So again, we'll be messaging that very, very heavily. We like to do an even odd lawn watering schedule, but it's not always necessary to water all 3 days. Again, reinforce wise water use. If you're washing your car and your lawn, use a water hose that turns off when you're not actively washing. And then our member agencies will contact their top 10 irrigation users to request a voluntary reduction in use. Again, we will provide an update to all of you. We're in a 50% ban, or a 50% voluntary lawn watering announcement. And then again, you can go directly to the site, direct people who are asking you questions to the site. You shouldn't have to try to make answers yourself. They're there for you. This is the stage 3 that I was just telling you about. We'll let our emergency management partners know, DNR, all of you, media outlets. We'll all have uniform messaging available, similar graphics, so that we're all singing from the same sheet of music. We're all telling the same story. We're all letting everyone know why this is really important to our communities. Same thing, just street sweeping. If we don't absolutely need to do that, we shouldn't be doing that. Wise water use indoors. This is where that becomes very important as well. When we're doing things inside of our homes, full things we should be doing anyways, but just reinforcing full dishwashers, full loads of laundry. And then we'll, again, call our top 10 irrigation users and ask them to immediately stop, prioritize them above everyone else as those media notifications are going out. Again, sod and seed can continue. The board does reserve the right to come back if that's not working and there's a risk of violating that standard, to come back and say, okay, we tried to keep sod and seed going, but public health and safety overrides sod and seed. And then sports turf and fields can also continue during this time at the lowest amount of water necessary. Again, we have visited with Iowa State University and the Iowa Turfgrass Association about why that's important and the best ways to continue watering that while preserving our water supply. So another thing we figured out last summer was that the technical committee who was talking about these things, they have varying degrees of authority. So we have CEOs and general managers on the technical committee, we have public works directors, and we have staff. So they have varying levels of authority within their communities as far as being able to make these decisions. So the Board of Trustees will be making the decisions, the technical committee will be making the recommendations to the board. So you will be seeing press releases and decisions made at the board level, but the technical committee will be making the recommendations the same as last summer. And then the fun part. This session, the legislature did award $25 million for the nitrate removal facility for the expansion of it. This expansion is not necessarily to avoid a lawn watering ban, because that can happen for any reason. If we have a drought, we could have a lawn watering ban. If we have an equipment failure, a plant goes down, something could happen to create a lawn watering ban outside of something that requires a nitrate removal facility. But that $25 million was awarded to us to expand the nitrate removal facility. We are anticipating that that could happen within 3 years of issuing a construction contract. Now, how well the nitrate removal facility works depends on the quality of water coming into the facility. So the higher the nitrate concentration, the lower the amount of water that can come out of that facility at a lower nitrate concentration. So if the water coming into it is a lower nitrate concentration, it can produce lower levels of nitrate water coming out of it. If the water is higher nitrate concentration going into that nitrate removal facility, then it's going to be more constrained on how much water it can produce. There were some other things in that package as well. There was a $3.72 million enhancement for upstream conservation practices in our watershed. So an enhancement on top of funding that's already available for conservation practices, and then an appropriation for monitoring. But specific to us, we did get the $25 million for the nitrate removal facility. It was a very good session for our 12 member agencies, our 7 water treatment plants, and then our 4 operating contractors that run our 7 water treatment plants. Happy to answer any questions if you have any. You also have my information in front of you. I'm available to answer questions that way as well.
Yes.
And if I may, first of all, thank you both for your leadership. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
I understand that some communities take water from their wastewater treatment plant and further treat it for drinking water. Since that water has already had nitrates removed, it's been pulled out of the ground and we're just discharging it into the rivers. Do our long-range plans call for that type of consideration as a water source?
So at this time, our long-range plan does not call for treated effluent. It's a widely accepted practice. It's very hygienic. It's a very exciting practice, but at this time, we do not have that in our long-range plan.
Is it a cost issue? Because again, it's been partially treated and we're just discharging it back into the river.
Sure. I can't speak for whether it's a cost issue or anything like that. It's just not something that our board has discussed or considered at this time. Been a lot of good lunchtime conversation, but it hasn't been anything we've talked about for a long-range plan.
What stage are we currently in right now? Are we on stage 0 now?
We are on stage 0 right now. Right now, with all of the rain in the forecast, we're not really seeing an uptick, thank God, on lawn watering just yet. So we are pushing out messaging to please not water your lawns. We're having very good I think people are really listening to that message this year, but it's just raining so much that it's working out very well for us. Yeah.
So what do we do with the people that are automatic lawns? Businesses, they just automatically, are they cutting back, or are they getting into the fold that you really don't need to water every day?
So after we had our lawn watering ban last summer, I've been meeting with the Professional Lawn Care Association almost monthly, sometimes more. So they've been really messaging that to their water users that it's just not necessary. We've talked to really large users about that as well. I can't speak to what's happening on our individual member agency level and what they're seeing, but some of our member agencies that really monitor it closely are still seeing less utilization at this time of year.
It's pretty amazing, 30% going to grass.
It's incredible. The more we have an opportunity to talk about it, it just really strikes people. It's so expensive to water lawns. Last summer, I bought my first home ever, so thanks for welcoming me to Des Moines. I'm 41 years old and I've never planted roots anywhere, and thank you. But there was so much irrigation on my sod. There was algae growing around the edges, and it's absurd. I think we can do a lot to learn about lawn watering.
Plant more trees too.
Yeah.
Who wants to go next?
Back to Amy. So you mentioned water monitoring in Jefferson. Is that Jefferson, Iowa, or someplace in the Jefferson Street, someplace that?
Jefferson, Iowa.
Okay.
The monitoring is upstream. We watch it to see what we're going to get so that we can be ready for it.
And is that ours or that's
That would be
Iowa DNR?
it would be a USGS monitor.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes.
Councilman Barry.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Tammy, you said, at certain stages you start reaching out to the top 10 water utilizers. Can you quantify how much water it is that those top 10 use? Do you have a number, a percentage?
Yes. So I'd like to put that into perspective because, as I said, since we started our after action review last summer, we've really started digging into what exactly is a top 10 water user. So I'm just going to call out R&R Realty because they get called out on the news a lot. And they get called out as a top 10 water user. But you have to put that into perspective. They have the most grass in the metro and in like West Des Moines and Des Moines and all of that. So if you look at it simply from that perspective, it looks like they're a top 10 water user because they are. And so when you think about top 10 water users, they actually put in a lot of high-tech water use systems. So they really monitor how much water they use. So per square foot of grass, they are actually a very low water user, but they have lots of grass to water. So as we think about top 10 water users, just in that regard, it's the people who use the most water, not necessarily the top 10 water wasters. So it just really depends on how people are using the water. As far as calling the top 10 irrigation users, we would be asking our member agencies just to call the top 10 people who use the most water, not necessarily a water waster. I gave you lots of answers there to a lot of different questions.
Basically,
but I just
some
wanted to
people
call
are-
it out because I think it's unfair the way they get portrayed.
I imagine it's complex, but I think even if it's an R&R Realty, if they do a 25% reduction, that's going to have a lot more impact than if I do a 25% reduction.
That's true, but it is all, but if 1,000 of you do a 25% reduction, it's a really big deal and it means a lot to us.
Sure. And I guess the point, though, is, it's in the plan for a reason. And you recognize that high water users need to have a certain level of outreach, and they're going to have a greater impact if they adhere to what's being asked of all of the other consumers.
That's right.
Amy, if we could trade, I want to thank you for the tour that
Our pleasure.
you gave me. And it was February or March. It was fantastic. The weather was great. You mentioned earlier, and Councilman Voss asked about the Jefferson water reading. I think it'd be helpful because you talked to me about the different readings and when you're taking in information and how often, knowing that we have a pretty large crowd here and probably a pretty large crowd online. I think it'd probably, a lot of them probably, I didn't know, the pace and the amount of information that you're getting, how often and from all over. And maybe folks it'd be a good opportunity for you to share that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think a premise that I'll start with is that our mission is to protect public health. We take this very, very seriously. This is why we are in existence. We make tough decisions every day. It's really at the core of who we are. And so to support that, Des Moines Water Works takes up to 300 tests every single day. That does not include the monitoring that we're doing upstream and online through the USGS sensors, through the University of Iowa system that has recently faced funding challenges. And so, yes, monitoring, testing, crucial to our success in meeting safe drinking water standards.
I know when we met, it was late morning and you'd already had testers out and back multiple times to sample water. And I think that was eye-opening for me and gives me more confidence in your team's work. I think this is a correct me if I'm wrong moment. You shared a statistic to me about the percentage of water that the Des Moines area receives upstream. Like, so this, our source water, that's not just, very local to us. And it was something in the 90%, I think.
80% well, 80% of our watershed, maybe this is the statistic that you're referring to, is, agricultural in row crops and so forth. And so sometimes we're accused of blaming, and that's not a blame game. That is simply a fact. That's the card that we're dealt. And so we have to be able to mitigate that usage. So it is, this conversation between urban and agricultural is a good question. We all have a part to play. We all need to be part of the solution, regardless of where we live. 80% is coming to us from upstream on agricultural land.
I appreciate that. And both you and Tammy have really done expert jobs of being balanced in terms of how you discuss this. And I don't have to be as much because those guys elect me, and, they can send me away in 4 years if they want to. But, thinking about that, thinking about the $25 million that was announced, and I think that's a step in the right direction. But the reality is, and you don't have to respond to this, I really don't want you to. But the reality is we need better practices across the state. We are dependent upon what happens north and west of us, in folks all across the state of Iowa. And I think that they want to do what's best too. I think the gap here is we need more consistent and invested statewide leadership, not, money invested, but really being willing to have tough conversations and figure out how we can make this better. Because we shouldn't be relying upon building more nitrate removal facilities to be able to keep our water clean. We should be able to do a better job from the front. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. You have some more?
Yeah, I've got a few more
Okay,
questions.
because we got a few more things going on.
Well, I understand, but so one of the things we're talking about is kind of this culture of lawn watering, and I was wondering if we have rate structures that send the right signal to folks. If all of us are paying to run that nitrate removal system at peak, but not all of us are watering our lawns and using the same amount, is that reflected in rates today? And if not, is that part of the long-term plan?
Yes, thank you for that question. I appreciate that. Des Moines Waterworks does have rates that charge more for lawn watering. A couple years ago, for residential customers, we reduced water rates for essential household use. So we're now an inclining rate structure is what it's called. And I forget the specific statistic, but it was something around 87% of our customers saw their water charges on their water bill decrease as a result of that rate change. And because it inclines, those customers who use a lot of water due to lawn watering, that the more you use, the more you pay. And so lawn waterers are indeed paying more. And so that is intended to signal a value there. And at least if there is no water use or no restriction and customers choose to irrigate, okay, they're going to pay, and that will help pay for the costs for treatment and infrastructure. We'll get more from those customers. Just one more thing, and then commercial customers, we implemented an irrigation rate this year, a higher irrigation rate.
I'd like to add that we do have a water usage best practices committee, and it's actually chaired by a Des Moines Waterworks trustee. It's made up of several of our 12-member agency representatives, so there's really good representation across the region on that. There are also 12-member agencies, so everyone across the region shares this. We do have member agencies who have a tier that's 400% of the water rate. Whenever people are irrigating in that upper tier, they're paying 400% of what a normal household use would pay. So our board, our trustees, our region is taking this very, very seriously. We do see that people are simply overwatering their lawns.
Okay, thank you.
On the Water Usage Committee, I was also going to ask, building water conservation. I know that wasn't the focus, but I assume that would make a difference as well if we reduce baseline water usage, particularly among, for example, our largest buildings.
Make a difference in,
Usage.
Would in usage, would water conservation in our buildings help address what we were talking about today?
if people used less water, if buildings used less water, then yes, we would use less water in our facilities, correct?
Yeah. And is that committee, so we have a water conservation benchmarking ordinance that we stopped enforcing. Is that water conservation committee looking at ordinances like that? Is that part of the evaluation?
So our Central Iowa Waterworks cannot tell our member agencies how to use their water. So we can't say you have to or thou shalt. But our Water Usage Best Practices Committee can look across the region, across the United States, across the world and say, hey, someone's doing this really, really well, and we should do this really, really well too. So please consider this, or maybe you should consider this. So yes, we can look at best practices and provide them to our members.
And I just one request as a follow-up to that. You know, we have a water conservation benchmarking ordinance. I think it's a good policy. I think it's a best practice. I think in the context of water shortages, like we're talking about here, implementing and enforcing policies like that are particularly important. One of the entities that it applies to and that pushed back hardest on that ordinance was R&R Realty. So water conservation, we have some tools and some things that we could do. We have stopped doing that, and I don't understand why we stopped enforcing that part of the ordinance. I also don't understand why we stopped enforcing the energy part of it, but the water part is very clear that there's no ambiguity on that piece of the ordinance. And I would hope, given the situation that we are facing, that we bring that ordinance back.
Okay, with that, I think we need to look into that, and we'll look and see what has been brought forward. So I'll turn that over for you to look back into on how we can monitor that. And thank you for your presentation. We wanted to have it because of the timeliness of the water usage and getting people more familiar ahead of the water lawn. So I would suggest that people look at best practices, and I think we should be easily able to reduce, because there definitely wasn't the need to water as much, right? So thank you for coming back in.
All right.
And we'll turn, I think our next item.
Mayor and Council, the second item on the agenda is Melissa comes forward. You may recall that last fall, we cycled through all of the departments to share additional information, service levels, things of that nature, different opportunities to measure the service levels from each of our departments and the impacts that they're having on our residents. So we purposely held off on the library presentation, given that they were seeking new leadership, and they were very successful in that regard in bringing Melissa on as the new director. And so we let her, we let her have a little bit of time to get her feet underneath her, and scheduled this morning's conversation for her to generally share with the council the services being provided by our fabulous libraries. Melissa?
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor Bozen and City Council. I am Melissa McCullum. I'm the director of the Des Moines Public Library. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today to really highlight the many ways our community libraries uplift individuals and strengthen neighborhoods throughout the city of Des Moines. Thank you also to you and to your predecessors for being library advocates, for supporting public libraries, literacy and lifelong learning, intellectual freedom, and welcoming community spaces since the city of Des Moines took over the Des Moines Public Library in 1882. I want to thank the other library advocates in the room as well, including the Library Board of Trustees, the Des Moines Public Library Foundation, our Friends of the Library and Brick Committee from the Forest Avenue Library, friends groups from the Northside Library and the Franklin Avenue Library, our beloved patrons and volunteers and community partners, and current and retired library staff, many who live in addition to work within the city of Des Moines. Over the next 40 minutes, we will provide an overview of the Des Moines Public Library and demonstrate how our services, our literacy outreach, our library programming and spaces, our physical and digital collections, our technology, our outcomes, and our vision align with City Council priorities. As the city manager mentioned, this is a similar format used for other department overviews presented over the past year. But first, we would like you to hear directly from some of our patrons about the importance of the Des Moines Public Library for their well-being and their quality of life.
Wise.
Hi, I'm Casey.
Hi, I'm Drew Kelso, and I am a library board trustee and the owner of the Slow Down Coffee Co.
And I love the library because community comes together here. I'm Bridget Robinson, and I'm the loan originator and community outreach at Neighborhood Finance Corporation. The library has been a huge partner and a huge driver and source of a lot of these classes. So it's just been a match that's perfect for everybody.
And I use the library in retirement by checking out books. To think about the 405 books that I checked out of the library, I've saved over $11,000.
I'm Heidi Mason, and the library has helped me be a better parent. My little one, he has some pretty big emotions, and so I was able to use the library catalog to find books that help explain that situation.
What we've seen in the last 5 years in Highland Park is a library system and a community coming together and bringing back to life about 20 different businesses in a block radius.
I think it's so cool that the libraries exist, and I think it's so important for us to protect them and make sure that they remain open for everybody to use. We have so many families that come into the library that they're recent immigrants or they're refugees and find the resources that they need to sort of navigate this new world.
So going back in time in 2014 when I immigrated with my family, we weren't speaking any English. Now I'm in medical school. The library was that place. You would never find that in other places. It's like the most cultural, understanding place and supportive place for all people from all different backgrounds.
And these are just a few of the over 931,000 visitors who used our libraries in the past year. Everything we do is guided by our mission to strengthen our community by connecting people with the ideas and the tools that they need to enrich their lives. For decades, the Des Moines Public Library has cultivated vibrant community hubs that help readers, writers, creators, and everyday people thrive in their personal, their educational, and their professional lives. Our work aligns with many City Council priorities. Public safety is very important for the City Council and the community of Des Moines, and our libraries play a critical role in this effort on the prevention side. Every day we have kids and teens in our libraries, many who stay for hours, reading, doing homework, playing games, listening to music, attending a library program, chatting with staff, or just choosing to be in a safe space. We serve other vulnerable populations as well, supporting new parents, English language learners, youth and adults experiencing homelessness, and older adults seeking social connections. We also play an important role in strengthening neighborhoods. One example is the way that neighbors and supporters joined together to build the Forest Avenue Library adjacent to Evelyn K. Davis Park in 1992 after a proposed closure of a nearby branch. With the help of a $1 million donation, the library was built and developed into a cherished community and cultural anchor. Highlights include programs and services and a facility reflective of the community that it serves, including Martin Luther King Jr. and Juneteenth celebrations, the Soul Food Festival, the Betty Duncan Dynamic Women Awards, an extensive foreign language book collection, murals by local artists, student scholarships funded by the Friends of the Forest Avenue Library, and more. And each of our embedded community libraries have unique origin and impact stories. The Des Moines Public Library has dozens of community partners, including the Des Moines Public Library Foundation. The foundation, led by President Christine Riccelli and Executive Director Dave Raymond, has pledged a record amount of support this year, over $470,000 to support library programs, including Avid and summer reading, technology upgrades, and more. Our strategic partnerships help the Des Moines Public Library expand our reach, our resources, as well as our alignment with community needs. So let's look at that last priority, providing exceptional municipal services delivered in a cost-effective, data-driven manner in a little bit more detail. These are highlights from our fiscal year 2025 annual report. It's available for all online, and it includes several increases compared to the previous fiscal year in terms of annual library visits, reference transactions with over 200,000, that's an 8.7% increase. Participants reached by our programming and our outreach teams, 124,000, and public computer sessions, over 106,000, that's a 23% increase. All of our libraries are open 6 or 7 days a week, or they were in fiscal year 2025, for a total of 17,332 open hours. I do want to take a moment to highlight our budget, as I think the Des Moines Public Library does an amazing job providing impactful and innovative library services within our 6 libraries online and out in the community with a lean budget. For fiscal year 2027, we'll receive $10.8 million, or 4% of the city's $256 million general fund, as well as $1.5 million from the capital improvement budget. The library receives about 1% of the city's 5-year CIP. Of the $62 million projected for the local option sales tax revenue in fiscal year 2027, the library will receive $474,000, or about 1%. And we do appreciate all of this support. Public libraries' return on investment is high. Public libraries typically return $4 to $5 in value for every $1 invested through services like free materials, digital access, and programs, which increase home values as well as help improve local literacy rates. Over 300,000 people visited the Central Library during fiscal year 2025. A recent study by the Urban Libraries Council found that 31% of patrons visiting Central Libraries engage in other area activities after leaving the library, a statement to their contribution to downtown economic potential. And for business owners out there, we also use the Net Promoter Score to help gauge our performance. It's a randomized survey of recent users documenting customer satisfaction. Many businesses try to reach 70% on the scale. We routinely score in the high 90s, and for the first time in Q1 2026, we scored a perfect 100%. Our results in the most recent City of Des Moines resident survey from 2022 also are impressive. 53% of Des Moines households had visited the library in the year previous to the survey. 91% were very satisfied or satisfied with the overall quality of libraries, with 9% being neutral, which means that less than 1% of respondents were dissatisfied. 85% were very satisfied or satisfied with our library locations, and 13% were neutral. Only 2% were dissatisfied. And 80% were very satisfied or satisfied with our open hours, with 15% neutral and 5% dissatisfied. This is the Des Moines Public Library org chart. The City Council is on the top left as the mayor appoints the Library Board of Trustees. Current Library Board of Trustees include our President, Tim Hickman, Vice President Kimberly Strope-Bogus, Secretary Drew Kelso, and members Isabel Osius and Carol Hunter. The board sets policy, hires the director, and oversees the budget. The management team is also noted here. We have a combined 262 years of public library experience and 207 years working for the City of Des Moines. The majority of the workforce, represented by orange, is working directly with the public in our 6 community libraries or throughout Des Moines as part of our customer services and outreach team. The remaining divisions are administrative services and marketing, technical services, and building maintenance. The numbers noted in parentheses refer to the full-time staff in each division, and our staff is evenly split between full-time and part-time. It is now my pleasure to introduce our Community Engagement Manager, Ashley Molson, who will speak about the many successes of our Des Moines Public Library outreach team.
Thank you, Melissa, and good morning, everybody. The Des Moines Public Library has a long history of connecting library services with residents outside of our buildings. The lasting impact of these visits over the years is evident each time someone shares their personal story, sometimes from decades ago, of the librarian who visited their classroom to share stories, or the bookmobile stop that was the highlight of their week and their only connection to books. Today's young readers have a tangible connection to the joy of reading and the libraries in the form of our beloved pink reading monster, Rosie Reader. Our targeted youth outreach was significantly expanded in 2023 with support from the city. Here you can see the dedicated outreach staff who bring Rosie Reader to classrooms and child care centers across the city. Our outreach visits to readers as young as 6 weeks old introduce kids in child care and early education settings to reading for enjoyment using the simple steps, read, write, talk, sing, and play as the foundation. The team brings collections of books that stay in the classroom, share literacy tips directly with families, and ensure the kids we see also have access to books at home. This fiscal year, more than 2,000 brand new board books will be added to home libraries of the infants, toddlers, and preschoolers we visit. Investments in early childhood education are some of the most cost-effective ways to secure long-term economic benefits for our communities. Unfortunately, research tells us that kids begin to lose their enthusiasm for reading as they get older. Rosie Reader visits to kindergarten, first, and second graders focus on keeping kids engaged with books as they begin their formal literacy instruction. These visits connect classroom curriculum, highlight a variety of reading formats such as audiobooks and graphic novels, and promote a collective reading community in each classroom. More than 2,400 books will go home with DMPS second grade students this year, and another 700 books were added to classroom libraries through our Reading for Rosie Challenge. This challenge encourages classrooms to track their reading to earn their own Rosie plushie and a collection of books. While the team spends a majority of time connecting with young readers in the classroom, we also attend as many community-hosted events as we can. This is not an exhaustive list of the events we participate in, but you can see that we join celebrations across the city to connect with residents who may not be familiar with DMPL services and to meet the families of kids we get to know very well in the classroom. School family nights, cultural festivals, and neighborhood celebrations are opportunities for staff to share library resources and get to know more about the services offered by community organizations so we can connect to maximize our resources together. There are spaces in Des Moines where we aren't able to connect directly with kids and families, so we offer Simple Steps early literacy stations loaded with books and early learning toys. These stations, funded by Polk County Early Childhood Iowa, provide kids with materials during waiting times and offer welcome distractions during very serious and often traumatic experiences, such as the stations located in each of the juvenile courtrooms of the Polk County Justice Center, the Family Conflict Room of the Police Department, and Unity Point Blank Children's Star Center. The community partners who host these stations offer vital services to families, including employment training, education, health services, and places of safety. I've mentioned a couple times in previous slides, but we also believe in helping families build personal libraries at home. We want every resident in Des Moines to visit the library and take advantage of the free resources their tax dollars fund. However, we recognize that for many families, barriers of access still exist that prevent them from visiting our 6 locations. Research continues to show that increasing the amount of books kids have in their homes is one of the most cost-effective ways to boost literacy across the community. With funding provided by the DMPL Foundation and Polk County ECI, and in partnership with organizations like Knock and Drop Iowa, Foster Squad, DMPS, and so many others, we have distributed tens of thousands of books to kids in Des Moines these past few years. And while the Rosie Reader team brings the joy of reading to kids, our branch librarians are visiting aging adult communities, taking programs and collections of books off-site to meet folks where they are. These visits provide opportunities for socialization, support digital literacy, and introduce residents to new services offered by the library. Earlier, I briefly mentioned our deposit collections at early education sites. These are collections of books that staff select and deliver to provide access to our collections for people who may not be able to visit a physical library. DMPL currently maintains 188 deposit collections at 58 unique sites across the community, bringing nearly 42,000 books to classrooms and senior living communities this fiscal year alone. The Des Moines Public Library is stronger because of the many community partnerships we have. From partners who bring resources to connect with residents inside our buildings to those who welcome a pink plushie reading monster and a wagon of books into their buildings, we couldn't reach as many people across the city as we do without them. Well, I would love to highlight each and every partner. We'd be here all day if I did, so I'll just lift up a couple. LSI's childcare program provides training and support for members from our refugee communities to become licensed in-home childcare providers. Through the use of translators, these business owners receive a 6-part early literacy training, ending with a tour of the library so they're better equipped to incorporate early literacy techniques into their caregiving and feel confident using our public library resources. Parks and Recreation summer camps incorporate the Summer Reading Challenge into their programming each year, and we work together with Park and Play to share books and learning opportunities with families visiting parks throughout the summer. Building a community of readers is vital, and it's only possible with the support of individuals, organizations, and city departments who understand that curious and informed residents create safe and welcoming communities for all of us. And now I'll turn things over to Nikki Hayter, manager of the Franklin Avenue Library, to talk more about library programs and spaces.
Good morning. I'm Nikki Hayter. DMPL's expansive program offerings connect customers to a wealth of information and resources. Each DMPL location reflects its community through the programming that it provides. Library programs enrich people's lives and foster a sense of belonging and community by providing access to free, educational, and enjoyable programming options. A library regular recently shared that the library has become a space for my children and myself to grow, learn, and explore. DMPL offers staff-led and partnership programming for all ages. In 2025, DMPL branches hosted 2,001 programs with nearly 47,000 attendees. As of April 30th, 2026, DMPL locations hosted a total of 747 programs with nearly 18,000 attendees. Our staff is committed to offering programs that reflect and are responsive to community needs and interests, including helping customers confidently build an awareness of technology and job skills, providing a network of support for those navigating the grieving process, and of course, helping customers find their next read and spreading awareness about all things literary. If you haven't already, check out our Beyond the Shelves podcast, hosted by librarians Jess McCauley and Sarah Lane. It just hit a new record in downloads. We offer story times at all 6 locations. During these programs geared toward youth ages 0 to 5, our dynamic youth programming team create an engaging and immersive experience. Our story times provide so many benefits, including supporting early literacy by focusing on the 5 simple steps and developing socialization skills. A regular customer recently shared that she and her toddler have been enjoying Miss Jen's Baby Rhyme Time at the Franklin Avenue Library. In addition to loving the program itself, the mother said that the program has helped her daughter come out of her shell and interact with other children. DMPL programs also provide access to local experiences that might otherwise be financially inaccessible to many members of our community. Our Adventure Pass program allows customers to explore Central Iowa destinations like Blank Park Zoo, Brenton Skating Plaza, Greater Des Moines Botanical Garden, Science Center of Iowa, Des Moines Children's Museum, and Des Moines Performing Arts. Summer Reading is DMPL's longest-running programming targeted at youth. This program is critical for keeping brains active and engaged over the summer months. DMPL's Summer Reading Initiative makes an impact on childhood literacy. Research shows that children who read for pleasure and are motivated to read do significantly better at school than their peers who rarely read. Summer Reading also provides a safe space for teens to attend fun educational programs and volunteer. Amar Nagusi, Parks and Recreation Supervisor, shared feedback on DMPL's partnership with their summer program. This initiative has been nothing short of transformative for our community, igniting a love for reading among children and families in ways that are both engaging and impactful. The program's creative approach has raised a sense of excitement and curiosity that extends far beyond the library walls. This year's program kicks off with celebrations at all 6 library locations on Saturday, June 6th. We frequently receive requests for library tours from local schools and community organizations. This is our opportunity to welcome community members, including school-age students, seniors, new Americans, and English language learners to our libraries. Tours provide the perfect opportunity to see the library spaces and learn about the myriad programs, resources, and services that the library offers. For many of our new American Tour participants, it's their first time visiting a public library. And libraries are so much more than books. Non-traditional library services like community fridges and seed and houseplant libraries help community members meet their essential needs and help fulfill whole body wellness. Central, Forest, Franklin, and South all have community fridges. Our fridges have proven to be an invaluable resource for addressing food insecurity in our community. The Eastside Library recently added a seed library, and Franklin Avenue Library just reintroduced their plant propagation library for another season. DMPL also provides welcoming and inclusive spaces for the community, including study rooms, conference rooms, meeting rooms, open collaborative spaces, vibrant youth areas, family rooms, and sensory spaces, as well as an art gallery at the Central Library. In a recent online survey, a customer shared, libraries are a crucial space for every community. They're one of the last third spaces left where everyone, regardless of background, can gather, learn, use resources, and just be without needing to spend money. Recent use by the community includes the Goodwill Digital Literacy and Job Training Program at Central Library, offered 3 days per week, pop-up DMV services, model train displays at multiple locations, neighborhood association meetings. We've already hosted 30 in 2026 thus far, and so much more. DMPL provides vital meeting space for many city departments as well. We recognize that residents benefit when city departments work collaboratively to meet the needs of the community. In 2026, DMPL locations hosted 102 meetings and programs in partnership with other City of Des Moines departments. At this time, I would like to introduce Jennifer Tormey, manager of DMPL's Technical Services and Centralized Collections Department, to share more information about DMPL's collections and technology.
Good morning. Here are a couple highlights from the collection for fiscal year 25. Our library's collection has evolved dramatically over the years in responses to changes in technology, education, culture, and user needs. Our reliance on technology has grown. The way we consume media has also changed. We still focus heavily on our printed book collection, but the digital transformation has allowed us to expand into ebooks, streaming video, the Library of Things, technology lending, and community-centered programs and collections like the Eastside Library's Seed Library. Even though digital circulation continues to increase, we have 2.5 number of people who use the library exclusively for physical books. In fact, 40% of them are between the ages of 25 and 44. It stands to reason that these are parents and caregivers accessing the library's resources to support their child's future. Our collection provides means to enhance and enrich lives, providing enjoyment for everyone's interests. We introduced the Library of Things in 2022. Nearly 400 items are available in the collection and another 400 in the board games. Over 9,000 things have checked out since July by 2,000 unique users. Items range from technology, like the 3D printer or podcast studio, to household items like our most popular item, the carpet washer. This collection includes things you may only need once, a laser level or a radon detector, to things you might want to try before you buy, pickleball paddles or a cotton candy maker. In addition, we have a collection built specifically as a way to encourage family engagement. Parents and caregivers can explore activities together with children at home, strengthening family learning and connection. With another 400 items designed specifically for kids, the Library of Things Junior focuses on a mix of manipulatives and sensory toys, including things like blocks and stacking toys to grow fine motor skills. We also have puzzles and board games and audio players to encourage screen-free storytelling. This gives kids and families access to hands-on learning tools they might not otherwise be able to afford or try. Kids learn best by doing. Musical instruments, coding toys, and puzzles all help further their learning, but through play. We don't all learn the same way. Some children learn better through tactile or visual experiences rather than reading alone, and hands-on materials makes learning more inclusive. Libby is our primary app for digital materials. Almost 8,000 unique users use Libby each month, checking out well over 400,000 ebooks, e-audiobooks, e-magazines in this fiscal year alone. Usage increases nearly 10% every year as our patrons discover the app and adopt new reading habits. 47% of people who use Libby also checked out a physical book.
We really haven't changed much, have we?
All right, you will find our digitized Des Moines High School yearbook collection on our website and in person at the Central Library. You can also view digitized historic city directories and Project Des Moines, which highlights images in our special collection and the stories behind them. Central Librarian Kat Bean does an exceptional job overseeing our special collections. If you stop into Central Library, you can see our Des Moines photo collection, including Night in Des Moines, or view The Pioneers of Polk County, a biography of our founders written during the time they lived. Historical and also full of juicy gossip. Tech Central is at the Central Library as well and is a perfect place to create and innovate. You can apply custom designs to your projects with the laser cutter or the heat press, shoot green screen footage using our 4K camera, or convert old home videos to DVDs. Over 150 patrons use it each month, and Central Library has staff dedicated to supporting and growing it. Jaden, who was once homeless, supplements his business by using our heat press and button maker. An artist working on a project for the Botanical Garden used the Glowforge to create the dome you see in the middle, and several other elements you see on the piece on the right. And finally, yet another patron is creating prototypes using our resin 3D printer for his designs to make everyday items more accessible to those in wheelchairs. We began circulating hotspots during the pandemic to meet the needs of patrons who don't have internet access. We have 65 currently in the collection, and the waitlist never goes below 150. The goal of circulating hotspots is to bridge the digital divide by providing internet wherever our patrons need it. Another way we're helping to reduce that digital divide is by providing computers and Wi-Fi in all 6 of our buildings. Free access to public internet remains one of the library's top services, with 7,000 unique users in the past year. Many essential services and opportunities exist primarily online. Internet access is crucial and has become part of the basic civic infrastructure. And now I'll hand it off to our board president, Tim Hickman.
Thank you, Jen. This morning, you have seen that the Des Moines Public Library addresses community priorities by ensuring accessible, safe, and supportive environments for everyone, distributed through our community, with each location adapting to reflect, uplift, and serve its local community. As exemplified here on the left, our outreach programs address community priorities by supporting literacy, community vibrancy, and education with a constantly evolving set of efforts that last year touched about 20,000 preschool students, 16,000 students in our public schools, 11,000 attendees at community events, either organized by the library or in which the outreach program took part. Over 4,000 children are building home libraries, helping to double their chances to be on track with reading. And this is all accomplished by Ashley and her mighty staff of 4. Library programs, as exemplified by the highlight here in the center, are designed to touch every community member, providing access to education, socialization, community engagement, and technologically advanced workspaces. Our programming educated our friends, welcomed our communities into our shared meeting spaces, and supported them in the midst of unprecedented food insecurity. Over the last 10 years, the library has reconceived what its collections can be. Our digital collections make materials available anywhere. On the right, our Library of Things and Library of Things Junior allow our citizens to share seldom used items and access items they might not be able to afford. Wi-Fi at all of our branches, hotspots you can check out, and access to computers and printers help address the digital divide in our community. And lest I forget, this work is realized through the hard work and dedication of 138 librarians, assistant librarians, aides, technical service, and administrative staff employed at the library. The people at the library do the work, bring the programs and buildings to life, and in the age of AI, will be more critical than ever to assist us all in successfully navigating the overwhelming and unreliable sea of information we face every day. I wanted to provide a bit of history as part of the conclusion of our presentation today. The Des Moines Public Library System is the largest in Iowa, with a rich history going back 160 years. We celebrate our former director, Forrest Spalding, who wrote the Library Bill of Rights in the mid-1930s. The original 4-point document asserts the basic rights of every person to have access to information. After adoption by our library in 1938, the American Library Association joined us with its adoption the following year. The document has proven durable and adaptable and is still a guiding document by American librarians and is a formal policy of the American Library Association. Our library is known nationally and internationally for its role in establishing American public libraries as free forums of information and ideas. Throughout its history, the Des Moines Public Library has efficiently used a minimal budget to punch above its weight, making a difference not only for the residents of Des Moines, but also on a state and national level. For much of I feel like the State of the Union address a little bit here. For much of our history, we were a system of many small branches and station libraries. Station libraries were located in Des Moines businesses and restocked by library staff. This map shows the branches in red, the station libraries in yellow, and our current branch locations in blue. In 1959, there were 27 branch libraries and station libraries. A 1959 study suggested simplifying the system and going to a regional model, which was implemented between 1960 and 1985. The current branch names are an indication of the consolidation, with Central, South, East, North, West, which is now named Franklin, as well as the Forest Avenue Library. Our library system has many advocates, some of whom are in the room today. They may be advocates because, like Jan, who we saw in the video, the library saves them money, allowing access to materials and programs that they might not be able to otherwise afford. They may be advocates because their neighborhood library feels like home, with staff that recognize and engage them and understand their unique needs. They may be advocates because the library has hosted their children, elders, and the displaced of the city, part of our city's tradition of hospitality. They may be advocates because they understand that their library is the most democratic institution in our society, without which phrases like liberty and justice for all may seem hollow. Their advocacy has taken many forms. Two examples of this are the $1 million gift from David Credenier, which entirely funded the construction of the Forest Avenue Library in 1992, and the $22 million in donations from corporate citizens, foundations, and private citizens to support the construction of our central library in Gateway Park, right across the street. In addition, our advocates volunteer at the libraries, serve on the Board of Trustees and the board of the Des Moines Public Library Foundation, and apparently attend meetings early on Monday mornings. Finally, have we made a convincing case for the relevance, timeliness, urgency, and embeddedness of our libraries in Des Moines in 2026? I believe that the work of our libraries last year is exemplified by this quote by the American library scholar R. David Locust. Bad libraries build collections. Good libraries build services. Great libraries build communities. Council members, by this or any other definition, we have a great library system. The administration of our libraries, with the support and management of the Library Board of Trustees, are ready to roll up our sleeves to find savings, efficiencies, and partnerships to address realities of upcoming budgets. That's our presentation this morning. I'd like to invite Melissa to come back up, and we are open to your questions.
First. Okay, on behalf of the council, I'll speak. We do have a great library service, and I do want to thank Melissa and her team. I want to thank the board of directors, the trustees that take on the role and do the work to keep the library going. So thank you for the people that have been appointed. We know what essential services. In fact, this was the first board I was appointed to when I got involved in city things. So it's a special place. I was there during that fundraising for that central library. So we know the importance of the libraries and what it means to the communities, because it is much more than just books. And what you do, we see every day. So we appreciate that and all the work that everybody puts in. So thank you. And thank you for all the advocates who are here. I don't think we've had this many people in this chamber since we've been here, so thank you. I'm glad we have a bigger space so that we can have an overflow of people. So with that, does anyone have any questions? Or if not, you guys did a great presentation. You showed us the importance and what we will be, we are forever grateful for what you do each and every day for the citizens of our community.
Thank you so much.
Oh, can I mean, I echo what the mayor said, but one thing that was maybe kind of glossed over, we hear a lot from the Friends of Des Moines Parks, but the library has an equally important, and I want to make sure that gets elevated as well. I know a lot of the folks in this room engage with the Des Moines Public Library Foundation, and that's another piece of the investment and testament to the investment of our community in the library and the services that we have.
I think the generosity that was shown and even the rebuilding is our community supports the libraries and are very generous for the libraries. So we appreciate, again, all the work that everybody does. So.
Absolutely, and thank you for uplifting the Des Moines Public Library Foundation. Much more information available on their website, and please feel free to contact the Executive Director, Dave Raymond, for more information and to find out other ways to support the library.
You did a great job.
Okay,
great job.
Thank you. I think so I will turn this next topic over to our city manager.
Okay. I also want to thank everybody for coming out and would ask that you stay engaged throughout the budget cycle because we are going to continue to need input. And with that, we have our final discussion of the morning. Today, it's actually simpler for me to start with what today's discussion is not. We are not going to be diving into the differences based on the new law that is in front of the governor to be signed. Frankly, the centerpiece of the new law was a 2% gap, or excuse me, a 2% cap on growth for property taxes year to year. And given that simplicity and as harsh as that number is, we are able to then estimate that our property taxes for the next year and every year thereafter will be close to that 2%. I don't want to steal all of Nick's thunder because he will get into all of the numbers with us. But as he's preparing here and before he does that, I do want to kind of set the stage that hopefully everyone in this room and those listening recognize that expenses grow much faster than 2%. And at the end of the day, the council in front of you has a responsibility to make sure that we have balanced budgets. And so knowing that we have an every year challenge ahead of us, we are also, I am recommending to the council that we resolve 2 years worth of budget gaps so that we're not in this continuous cutting of service every year to our residents. This will add a little bit of stability in between the cuts every 2 years. I also want the public to recall, as the council are reminded by me regularly, that we had anticipated that the fiscal year 28 budget would be challenging under the old rules. There have been over a decade of changes in how property tax systems work, each of which has been damaging to our capacity and our ability to provide services. This is yet another example of that with the most recent law. And so these new rules are more challenging, and we'll have every opportunity to provide to the public exactly what those changes are. But to simplify, without this most recent cap placed on our property taxes, we could have grown more than 2% and handled expenses in that typical 3.5% range that we've experienced. But that is not an option for us moving forward. We have to make the numbers work at the end of the day. So again, knowing the magnitude of these next 2 budget year gaps, we have decided to start the process early, have even more public input such as this morning. And so again, I've asked Nick and our finance department to help estimate what these budget gaps are going to look like over the next 2 years so that we can dive into that challenge, understanding it as well as possible, dive into those challenges with our department directors and continuously get additional public input on that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Nick and obviously be available for questions at the conclusion. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Scott. Honorable Mayor and council members, my name is Nick Shaw, Finance Director with the city here in Des Moines. As Scott alluded to, the 2026 legislative session ended earlier this month, sorry. And then today we're kind of talking about that budget gap discussion, kind of giving you guys a preliminary view of what those numbers look like on a conservative basis and kind of looking at what awaits us on a 2% limitation on even the good year, bad year type of concept, which is what we've had in the past. Reassessment years tend to be a good, so that's why we kind of cycle through that good year, bad year aspect. But this being a 2% limitation for fiscal year 2028, 29, and 30, And then going forward, it's a little bit different too. It's a limitation as well, but there is a, if you don't, it's a lesser of. I won't get into that too much because that's year 4. And right now we're trying to work on the conservative estimates that we're working with today. So as we go into some of the different things that we looked at to try and give you this preliminary estimate, take this in mind that we are currently in fiscal year 26. We just completed our fiscal year budget for 27, and this is 28. So this does not even start until July 1 of 2027. So when we're talking about fiscal year 28, it is a very forward-thinking piece of it. And so when we're actually looking at these numbers, it is very hard to estimate these, and these estimates will change over the next several months. So as we look at the biggest component of our general fund, property tax revenue, there's several things that got affected by the legislation with the estimating of a 2% growth on the general fund levy, as well as the state commercial industrial rollback removal. So this was something that came out of the 2013 legislation where they changed the rollback for commercial industrial, where they went from 100% being taxed down to 90. And then this was a backfill to kind of fill in that loss of revenue. It was being phased out over the course of several years for us. So from that legislation that was passed, it was actually eliminated. Even the last couple years got eliminated from that. So from a standpoint from fiscal year 27 to 28, that is a difference of about 1.5 million that is not there today. The state business property tax credit, or BPTC backfill, was another piece of funding that we would be getting from the state. That was basically the business property owners were getting taxed, or still will be getting taxed at 100 for their first 150,000 of their property as a residential rate. So instead of being taxed at 90%, they were taxed at the residential rollback rate, which is about 45%. So that was kind of trying to help some of the small businesses. It used to be, I can't remember when this changed, but it was something that was done by application, and then through legislation, it was changed to all businesses were to receive that. So with that one being removed, that was about another 2 million that we will not be receiving because that funding has got allocated to something else. So there's also quite a bit of changes with the homestead credit increasing in amount and it being changed to exempt. So that's a completely different approach to it. So we're still trying to figure out how that might actually affect us. But that is a change from it being funded by a state, but now going to exemption. So it's not even going to be a part of the 100% valuation. So things to consider there as it relates to property tax revenue. All those things in consideration is actually a negative number for us with our 2% growth, and then losing some of those different funding sources actually is going to be a net negative to our property tax revenue. Some of our larger other revenues that we see is our franchise fee, the 5% portion of that's actually goes within the general fund. That is one of our major revenue sources. That one is one where we normally budget about 13 million a year, but it is very dependent on how warm or how cold it is and the use of gas and electric, because it is a 5% on the gas and electric services. So it's easy to see that change from year to year. We usually assume maybe about 13%, but you could easily see that vary between 5% to the good, 5% to the bad. So 13 million, sorry. It is a 5% franchise fee that goes into the general fund. Yep, thank you for correcting me. Hotel motel tax, the city's portion of that, that is the 7% local, the hotel motel tax that is on those type of stays. From that, the city gets half of those funds. The other half of it goes to CVB and Bravo through agreements that we have with them. So from the city portion, that could easily, depending on what's going on economically, could be up and down. And so within that, we kind of have a varying of about 5% as well, where it could be to the good or to the bad there. Another key revenue source that we have is building permit revenues. We have had a good peak that we've seen, not knowing if that is going to continue flat or come down, depending on the different aspects of that. So from that is another key source of revenue that we need to be looking at to kind of see where we're going within our estimates here. The other thing that is a key component to the general fund operations that has been since fiscal year 2020 and on has been the local option sales and service taxes. So half of that has to be for property tax relief, which has gone through and funded additional debt service, the principal and interest payments through our debt service fund. But the other 50%, about half of that other 50% or 75 or 25% of the local option is kind of going towards general fund operations, whether it be police officers, firefighters, or some of the additional funding for the library that is coming out of the local option sales tax. Yeah.
Or Airbnbs that are so popular, do they pay the hotel motel taxes also?
I think it depends on the usage and how they have it set up. I myself, I don't know exactly how that system works as it relates to the hotel motel.
And for clarification, the state regulates that, and we don't have the specific data on unit by unit. In fact, we're not allowed to see that without some formal requests.
Yep. So that's something that we actually get quarterly payments from the state on that, and it is considered proprietary information, I think, for the different businesses and how they're doing. So that is a very restrictive information for us to be able to dig into. Another harder revenue to estimate, but is still a somewhat significant, or it has been a significant income revenue for us, is the interest income. That's, if you look back in the last 10 years, we varied from either 200,000 to 17 million over the course of the last 10 years. And the main reason why, it truly depends on the amount of pooled cash that we have versus the interest rates that are currently available. And so this does, as we've gone down on our ARPA-related funding that we've had within the general fund and different things like that, it is one that has been coming down from the peak that we've seen. But if we go back to pre-COVID, our interest income was in that $2 to $3 million range. So that's kind of where we're kind of estimating currently today. So from that standpoint, that is kind of a rundown of kind of some of the estimates that we are looking at with our estimates currently today. And again, this is very early on with our estimates, and it will change from month to month as we go through our budget process this year. As we go into the expenditure estimates for fiscal year 2028, one of the biggest drivers in the general fund obviously is our salaries and benefits for all of our departments that are within the general fund. That has been traditionally, the cost of employee salaries and benefits has historically been above 4% for the cost of health and benefits, as well as the salaries when you're actually talking about the inflationary or CPIs that we try to work with on those. Some of the other expenses, again, depending on where we are with inflation, it is tough to try and estimate that. Again, this is more than 12 months in advance, but we did try to do estimates based off of what we've seen over the last couple of years. So taking all of those things in consideration, We do have a conservative estimate for 2028 as about a $12 million shortfall. So as we look at that and depicted in a chart, you can see that fiscal year 2027 was a balanced budget between the revenues and expenditures. As we look at the very early estimates that we're looking at for 2028, it is that $12 million mark. And then the early projections that we are seeing, again, another 12 months going forward is about 17. That's not an additional 17. It's basically the additional gap from the 29 2% limitation, as well as increase in costs, is about a $5 million difference. So,
Nick?
yes.
So the FY28, it appears, I mean, just looking at the chart, that we are down $2 million. So we're expecting revenues to be $2 million below. So that's not even
correct
2% growth. And that is, could you just make sure I understand, like that's the backfills going away?
Yep.
What else?
Some of the other stuff is the interest income, as well as the backfills between the commercial industrial and the business property tax credits. So between all of those and kind of being on the conservative side of like the hotel motel franchise fees, caused that to be a decreased revenue from the 27. But the biggest drivers is the commercial industrial backfill and the removal of the BPTC.
I would also add the building permit. We have benefited from the airport construction, which is hundreds of millions of dollars, but they still pay building permits because our staff are out there with the plans and the inspections. And that will be phasing down quite a bit as they finish up construction in the next phase, the next couple of years.
So is that over $1 million a year in just building
It probably is, just with all of what they're doing.
Okay.
And this doesn't even include the homestead.
It has an estimator in there, but it's a little bit too early to see what that would actually do. So I have an estimator in there knowing what language is there, but not knowing how it's officially going to be applied and how it's being calculated. It is a very broad estimation right now.
So Scott, or maybe you know this, maybe you don't. What is the growth cap for the state's budget? Where are they at 2% too? Is all this on the same?
I don't think so.
They budget based on their revenues, and they have revenue estimating discussions like we're doing this morning so that they understand in advance what they're looking at for their revenues. And so, yeah, they have a very different system where they can decide for themselves. And obviously, with some of the changes in state income taxes, their own revenues are going down in many categories.
But they're not capped at the 2%, right?
No, they are not. They get to decide that for themselves and for us.
Do we know what theirs is? I mean, is it 3%? Is it 4%? I mean, what is it?
Yeah, well, and we can dig up that history and show you, but for many years that I've researched, it's considerably higher than the 2%.
Well, and they budget to revenue, but they spent more than their revenue this year. They're dipping into reserves as well.
Correct.
The last 2 years.
Correct. They had put aside some of the ARPA funds from a few years ago, and so they are spending more than what they're bringing in considerably.
About 4% in that, as I understand, that was reported. Their budget grew 4%.
I think there's just two standards, one for the state and then one for our communities, right?
Nick, if you don't mind, to this slide this is general fund, and so
correct
for folks who aren't as enmeshed in city budgetary jargon, can you talk about what this does not include?
Sure. Okay, so the general fund is our main operating account. Some of the other funds that we have are things like special revenue. Some of the examples of our special revenue, it is a specific source of revenue that can only be spent on particular things. So examples of those would be our road use tax funds. Those are funds that we receive from the state that can only be spent on specific road-related items. Another one would be our local option sales tax. That is another special revenue source that can only be spent on certain ways. That is one where we had to be under the umbrella of how the state allows us with local option, but then also what the council did approve for the use of that from our language that went to vote. But then also you guys had passed an expenditure policy before we actually went to vote on that one. So those are special revenues that's not considered in this. Some of the other fund types that are out there is our enterprise funds. So those are the ones that are basically run like businesses. Those are the ones like our sanitary sewer, our storm sewer, our refuse. So those are where the user-based fees are supposed to be able to generate enough to pay for those services. So those are run like businesses. Another example is our debt service fund. Those are to pay for the principal and interest of things that we borrow off of our general obligation debt, which usually is what we borrow for that is within our capital improvement plan, our capital projects accounts. And so those are another fund that we have that are just to be able to purchase assets as well as construct assets. The last item off the top of my head would be our internal service accounts. So an example of an internal service account is like a business, like the enterprise accounts, but it is to serve internal clients. So fleet services is one of our internal service accounts. So basically they operate their costs and then charge back the different departments. So from that perspective, the general fund gets charged for the services that they need from internal service. But those are some of the different accounts that we have to have that's based off of our governmental fund structure. But this is just our general fund, which primarily has our police, fire. I believe the library had a slide in there that had all the departments that are within that.
And the significance of this is obviously there's a lot more to the budget than just the general fund, but the general fund is most heavily relied upon to pay for the people that provide services.
And the property taxes going into the general fund, yes. The general fund's about 24% of our annual budget. So our just under $1 billion budget, our general fund is about 240, 250.
Thank you.
So. Taking that in mind with these early estimates and projections, what we're trying to do is kind of create a budget process that's quite a bit different than what we had in the past, given trying to involve a lot more of the public and transparency of trying to get this information out there, as well as trying to make sure that we're making the right decisions and the initiatives that the council has asked city manager to do. So with that, we are going to be working on potential savings for operations, creating kind of a list of possible options. We have currently have a date, June 17th, I believe, anticipated for kind of a workshop outside the normal Monday workshops. That's a Wednesday morning. And then we have a backup on the next normal Sunday workshop to kind of go through that if needs be. But then in the July-August timeframe, we're trying to incorporate some public meetings to provide broader information on the gap and budget challenges as we kind of go through, as well as create kind of a survey that allows residents to solve the budget, which means they'll be able to check mark different services that they would prioritize to try and solve the budgetary needs that we need to be able to cover. And then we'll try to review those results with the council, as well as publicize those from our website as well. And then kind of given the September, October timeframe, looking for council direction to city manager on a consensus of some of the cuts and savings, because it's not just cuts. It could be looking at other revenue sources or how to approach that, different things. And then November is kind of ongoing discussions and our final budget recommendations to move forward, because then at that point we'll be working on trying to finalize some of our numbers prior to getting our true value of the property tax taxable, what that will look like in that December timeframe. And then that would kind of go towards our normal budget cycle that we've seen in the past.
So Nick, when we do the survey, and I know we kind of did this for this last budget cycle, and just kind of a suggestion, are we going to do it? We're not going to pit different departments like we did before. Like, we're not going to say, do you want to cut police and fire, or do you want to cut libraries? Or are we going to do inside each department and give choices of what you'd like to see happen inside a department? I just don't think it's how we did it the last time. And I shared this with Scott, and I'll share it publicly. It's difficult to pit one department against the other and making residents choose, and even making us choose for that matter. It would be better to see it out of each department. Like, okay, if we're going to have to make cuts, what would you like to see out of each department being cut? And then we have a full variety. And I'm sure we're going to look at all departments. It's not, we're not just going to take a hatchet to the parks or the library, or, we're going to look at everything. And I really think it's important to give that option. I don't think it's quite fair the way that we did it last time. I didn't think it when we did it, and I don't think it's fair. I wanted to share that publicly as I shared it with him. I hope we do it differently this time.
So it is going to be very different in that there will be, the magnitude of the gap is such that all departments will be submitting ideas on where to find savings, because sometimes, again, it will be revenue as much as cuts. And so there will be multiple choices within each department. But understand, at the end of the day, the total across the entire city needs to be balanced. So I do foresee a time at the end of the process where we're gonna need to be making choices and potentially asking some departments to seek out yet additional options. I mean, we are not going to be able to avoid the magnitude. And so the shortcut for that is we need our residents to be willing to spend the time on solving, that's what this exercise will be online, is solving the entire budget balance, getting it balanced. And so you'll be able to choose from the department's options, but at the end of the process, it needs to be balanced. So in other words, we need to hear from library advocates of then where can we be making cuts, and look at the other department lists to make sure that we are getting things balanced at the end of the day. There is no easy answer to this at all.
So just to elaborate on this a little bit, to give you an idea of the solve the budget type of thing, is it's going to have a laundry list of those different things of either additional revenues or additional changes to services, and it's going to be able to allow you to check mark those, and it'll accrue those dollars for each of those options, and then it's going to have a bar to be able to let you know when you actually get that from a red coloring to green once you actually have the budget solved. So
will we include like departments? You talked about enterprise funds, and you talked about different departments that we get that, public works, things like that. Will they be part of the cuts also still? Or since they're funded by a different funding, how do you anticipate going through, and maybe not for you, but for you?
Yeah. So Public Works and the enterprise funds will be involved as well, but their savings will not help us in the general fund.
Right.
However, you and others on the council have reminded me and the public that it's the enterprise funds that we pay in our water bills, the sanitary sewer, the stormwater, the solid waste, are all under their own pressures. And we've had to have rate increases that were 5% and 6% recently with mostly the capital cost of the WRA plant, the levee work that we're doing across our community. So they are under similar pressures, and they are being asked to submit savings as well for their balance sheet separately. So again, we've started early enough that we've got plenty of time to bring back to you an isolated conversation with each of those utilities and what we anticipate, because we know that the 6% increase on those utility bills is not sustainable as well.
Councilman Mandelbaum.
One of the things, the magnitude is pretty serious. One of the things that would be helpful for me in this process, and that I hope is kind of a starting point, is that we look at what would be, if all departments are going to be touched, what would be kind of a proportionate share for each department across the general fund as a starting point. That's obviously not necessarily where we end up, but just having that out there and publicly available. And I think that would be helpful when we ask the public to do that exercise. That may be a guiding principle for some in the public to just know, okay, if you're trying to be proportionate, this is what you need out of each department to hit a proportionate goal. Because I think all of us would, none of what we're going to have to do over the next 8-10 months is going to be fun. Like, I'm still kind of sore about some of the things that we've cut over the last 2 years. And we're talking about going levels farther at this point. But having a greater amount of transparency and having it clear that we're all departments, all services are going to have to be a part of this solution, and helping the public understand that by starting maybe with what a proportionate share for each department would look like would be a helpful part of that process.
Okay. Councilman Barron.
Sure. I just, one note for the public. So, when it's June and when the list of potential savings comes out, that's going to be a big, scary list. It's going to be a big, scary list. And it should be intended to drive conversation, because the process we're looking for will require a lot of community feedback to the city manager and his staff. We can't have too much public engagement in this process. There's no oversaturation point, I think, when it comes to the engagement that we need, because to do this right, and the mayor and I were through this a lot on the school board. I think this was basically my last 5 years on the school board, where
I think all 14 years of mine.
Yeah. It needs to be a community process. It needs to be an understanding that, we're going to try and do the best that we can, that we're in this together, and that we have to all see this jointly as not a situation where there's heroes and villains here, but that we're actively trying to meet the needs of our community with less resources, and not because of the fault of anyone in this room. Just to clarify, Scott or Nick, 2 quick questions. Then are we working towards the $17 million target, not the $12 million target?
Yes.
Okay.
So 2 year.
So we're looking to make those cuts basically in the next year.
Yes, and there may be some opportunity where we can plan for those cuts to occur 12 months from now. There might be some rare situations where that makes sense.
Would you recommend making cuts prior? So we're soon to enter the fiscal year 27, which is the fiscal year before these cuts have to take effect. Do you anticipate proposing cuts or reductions in fiscal year 27 to do this work?
Yes, and understand that under the old rules, we saw this coming, and so there were vacancies that have not been filled intentionally to give options within the departments. And so the departments have been feeling that pain already by holding up filling vacant positions. And so you'll see on this schedule, September and October is the best opportunity and timing to make some of the decisions at that point, especially when it comes to the vacancies, to say that these will not get filled as part of the consensus at that point. And that way, if we can solve half or even potentially more of the budget by September or October, we can finish out the last 2 or 3 months on the harder decisions.
Okay, and then the last question, just getting to I know you're asking the departments to provide you with either options for increase in revenue or options to decrease expenditures. Understanding that there's different departments account for different percentages of the general fund. Are you making those recommendations at similar percentages per department? So are you asking each department to give you a 10% reduction consistently, understanding that we wouldn't use all that? Or are you asking more or less from certain departments when you ask for those recommendations?
Sure. I think the key there is that we're looking at service levels that are being provided. And so the answer is no, it will not be proportionate as a starting point. We can absolutely provide you what those numbers would be. But the reality is 60% of our general fund budget is public safety. And you guys can provide me individual input on that. But I find it very hard to believe that these cuts are going to be 60% public safety.
Well, I think that is where I've been having a lot of conversation with people and trying to prime them for the process that's in front of us right now, which is that to me is a very political conversation, and I think it has to be borne out by the 7 people that are elected and sworn to represent their community, and that's why it has to be a tremendously public process, because determining at what levels those cuts take place and who gets hurt more than whom is something that respectfully, like we, the 7 of us, have to bear responsibility for more than anybody else, and that's really where the rubber is going to meet the road over the next couple of months.
And I agree with that completely. So that's why it needs to be a fluid conversation. This June numbers that come out are just the starting point. And one of the things we'll continuously ask is, what are we missing? What input from the public for other ideas of potential savings? Did we not go far enough with potential in some areas? We'll be open to that.
I just want to share that I also had shared my concerns about the last survey that went out. I felt very strongly that it was pitting one department over another department, and I was very uncomfortable with that. I also know that there's a public safety report that's out there that has not been shared with council yet. When is that going to be shared, Scott?
Actually, I haven't had a chance to talk with the chief to know when that's coming out, but there are staffing reports and analysis that all our departments do that have accreditation requirements. That is always part of what they do. So we get staffing reports at all times throughout the year.
Because I was told that
Specifically, I think you're talking about the police.
right, and it has not.
Yeah, it's still in draft form.
Still, okay. Because I was told that that you had received a copy of it.
A draft, yes.
With it.
One more question, just to clarify the numbers. Going back to that budget chart and the projected expenditures, that projected expenditure represents status quo levels, or is there because I know there's talk sometimes about departments requesting additional funding or additional staff. That
is
chart
the
represents status quo.
That was the status quo. Yep.
So if there was talk about additional staffing, that would be above and beyond.
Correct.
Above and beyond this, and that would further create gaps to fill elsewhere.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, with that.
Hello, one more.
Oh, okay.
Waiting my turn, thank you. So assuming that the suburban communities are also facing some hurt in this, are there opportunities to create regional services, not unlike we have for water now, and probably not huge savings, but are there some opportunities? There are communities that have combined services for libraries. There are communities that, I mean, it might make sense to consider a regional trail authority for all the trails in the area. So are there opportunity? Are we talking with our suburban communities, our friends, to see, well, hey, are there opportunities? I know dispatch is public safety dispatch is one area that possibly we could improve service and save dollars if there was a combination.
Yes, the answer is absolutely yes. And again, because we knew that these challenges were coming, we've already started those conversations with our peers. We've had a little bit of progress, but those will be part of the options that we bring to you, understanding that some may take 3 or 4 years to implement, but that doesn't mean we don't get started and get some buy-in from some of our regional partners. I would also indicate that these challenges are on the new property tax system are different from one community to the next. And they're pretty severe, as you've seen the numbers from Des Moines. But other communities have different starting points where they have not made cuts in recent years, where we already have, and we've used up an awful lot of our levers, if you will, in previous budget cycles. That is not the case in most of our suburbs in central Iowa. It's more similar. In fact, our situation is more similar to what you would see in rural Iowa, county seat type communities with their budgets.
All right. Well, so do we have 3 or 4 years to talk about things when this is looming? So
Yes.
I mean, we've often been very deliberate in making some decisions. I don't know if we have the luxury of being that deliberate.
I think that's one of the goals that the state legislature wanted. They wanted people to think of, they put a bill together or amount for consolidation. And we have been working on it and probably have done it more within the metro. And as Scott's talked about, older communities, we're rebuilding, unlike the newer, suburban communities. So we have every bridge we rebuild, all the levees we redo, all the roads that we need to do. Those are things. So I don't call this a property tax reduction bill. I call it a service cut bill because it's forcing us to make cuts to our services. Nobody wants to be in this position. As Mr. Barron said, we lived through it on school. We did almost every year, had to look at reductions. We had the luxury of the local option sales tax, which helped us. We have, as the manager Sanders said, used our levers. We need to get creative. We need to all work together to come up with solutions. I do want to thank Senator Bisignano. He did bring up this year about the fact that 40% of our community we cannot tax. And we will be drafting a letter to the governor, to ask for a pilot payment in lieu of taxes. I know other communities like University of Iowa, I believe, gets funding and for state services that we provide for them and we get no reimbursement for. So we will be saying we can't wait. You know, we've talked about it. Any land that you have that's not being used that we can develop around the Capitol or property that is owned, we have developers that would take that. Those are all avenues and creative ways trying to say, help us do what we need to do to give the services to our citizens that they want and deserve. So we will work tirelessly. We'll, like we said, we're starting the process 6 months earlier, I think, to get more conversation and trying to come up with ways that we can mitigate what we're facing. So again, thank you all for coming today. Thank you for staying through this presentation because it's important that everybody understands this is not our doing. This is really what our state has given us, and we will do everything we can to help provide the services. So thank you for being here, and we'll reconvene at 5 o'clock for our regular city council meeting.
Thanks, Nick.